What do we talk about today? I guess the subject that I love the most. I have been a student of history for 20 plus 25 or so years. And I always found historical events to be unique, to be more, I don't know, to make more sense than fictional ones. Because to have or to learn of a historical event, you must have factual information. You must be able to know your sources. You must be able to know things that are happening or things that happened and be able to trace certain things back to where they come from. History requires a lack of faith in something and more of a knowing something. If knowledge is power, then you must be able to see the fiction within something that is not truth. Now, that being said, you must then trace or look for what we call as primary sources, those things that are actual a eyewitness account. What is an example? The Zapruder film from the Kennedy assassination is considered a primary source. Eyewitness accounts can or are considered primary sources. However, one of the most important things to understand about a primary source or an eyewitness or account or many eyewitnesses account is that people who investigate these things are looking for those accounts to marry and paint a complete picture. Meaning, stories cannot contradict. You can't say in one account that the assailant ran into a barn, and then somebody else who supposedly witnessed the same event said that the assailant ran into a house. That's a contradiction. That is the definition of a contradiction. When you are corroborating stories, those stories are to blend. This is how we establish truth. Now, if you get 4 people to corroborate, 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 people say that John ran into the house. But then you have one person that says, no, it wasn't a house, it was a barn. Who are you going to believe more? The 15. But when you are reviewing information that you assume to be truth, but then you read the other accounts, and those particular accounts that you are reading are contradicting. One says a manger, another says a house. One never states something that happened during the execution, and another does. These are unreliable sources, meaning you have to accept them based on faith. But faith has no fact. Or, if I take the same scenario and I apply a factual location and sprinkle in a fictional action in a place that can be found on a map, now I can create the plausibility that this particular event happened. Even though there is no proof, no truth, no evidence to actually substantiate the claim. And when you have people who are not trained on how to actually excavate truth from fiction, then they who are not trained into understanding the primary sources will assume, based on faith, that their idea is truth. This cannot work. And if you double down, triple down, and keep discussing it year after year, decade after decade, millennia after millennia, and the further you get from the actual event, the more legend and mythos it becomes. And then when you get enough people to assume the factual information that is not factual, to assume that it is truth, after enough time, you will convince everyone that a rock can cry out. No. This is not historical. This is not how you apply history. For history requires you to do your homework and to provide evidence. History requires the consistent focus of a quest for truth, and not the ignorance of accepting something because someone you love thought it to be truth. Santa Claus is not real, but we kind of have a little of a kind of enough evidence, if you will, to know that Kris Kringle was. I'm sorry, not Kris Kringle, my mistake. Saint Nicholas. And no, I'm not talking about Nick Saban. But when we actually go into depth in the understanding and the comprehension of events that happen historically, and we focus our time and our attention on peeling apart the hair follicles, the splitting of the hairs, and the digging of the information, so that we know, not as a statement of faith, but as a statement of fact. When we know this, we then empower ourselves to greatness. See, children, it is cute for a child to think some big fat white dude is going to come down or come down a chimney. But when you never tell the child that your home has no chimney, a child then has this magical thinking that something is going to happen without even the hint of evidence. When you tell a child that if you act up, Santa is going to bring you nothing, the child straightens up for fear. Fear, false evidence appearing real. The child will begin to act right because that child desires the gift. But if you do not threaten the child with damnation or with the lack of a gift, and the child starts to realize that there is no such thing as a Santa Claus and that me getting a gift is only dependent upon my parents, then the child will determine for itself what actions it will take, because now it does not fear. Faith without fact allows for the cancer of fear. Fact without faith eliminates fear. And when you have been taught that darkness is bad, you will assume that even the best or the truest of information is evil. Do your homework and let go of your faith. Find facts. Toodles.